Hey Michelle, your camera has a dial on the top, something like this. It's got settings around the circumference of the dial to tell your camera how to operate. It probably has got a green box, a P, AV, TV, M. Then around over here, it's probably got little mountains, a running man, maybe a flower, and maybe a C1, C2, and C3, something along that line. Everything on the other half of the dial, just forget about. You don't need that. Not now. The green box is a full auto setting. That's just like your point and shoot all grown up. Only thing you control is the length of the zoom on the lens and when you push this shutter button. This is a great function if you're confused about the lighting, if you have to make real quick decisions. If you hand the camera to someone else and say, hey, take our picture, put it on the green box. Everything else you're doing should be on one of these other settings. Your camera can do it, and I know you can. You're so creative, you will just flourish when you get into these other settings with your camera. The P is for program, and that's kind of the lighting's tricky, things are moving, I'm not quite sure what to do. The P allows you to set your focus point and your ISO, and everything else the camera will take care of for you. The AV and the TV stand for aperture value and time value. The aperture value is where you set the aperture of your lens, and the camera sets everything else. TV is time value, and that's where you set the shutter speed of your camera, and then your camera will set everything else. So if you set your aperture, the camera will set your shutter speed, your ISO, and you're good to go. That's if you have to set your aperture really wide open because it's a dark room and you want it to stay there. You don't want that that aperture to move, then the AV setting is perfect. TV, the time value, the shutter speed, if you're shooting a sporting event or the kids playing soccer and you know that you cannot go below a shutter speed of 400 or the picture will be blurred, then you use TV and you set your shutter speed and you let the camera figure out your aperture and your ISO. Manual is for full control of your photographs. How much light, how fast you let it in, aperture value, shutter speed, and your ISO. That's wonderful if you're taking sunset pictures, fireworks, anything that's not moving, because sometimes you have to react pretty quick if it's sports or a wedding, things like that. And sometimes with manual, at least when you're getting started, you're kind of behind a wall. You have to set every shot. So aperture value and time value are the two you should be using the most because it gives you the most creative control. All the rest of the settings, the mountains, the little running man, the macro, which is the flower, those settings are specialized versions of the green box. Those are settings that you should know how to do and will know how to do pretty quick, and you won't need those settings on the camera anymore because you can get better control for sports by using your aperture value or even your TV. You can get better control and better lighting than the little running man setting on your dial. Okay?